Pittsburgh, October 12, 1944. Vera Holloway sat in her office at the Allegheny County Health Department and stared at the numbers until they blurred. 23 years old, diploma from the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, barely 2 years old, and here was her first real puzzle in practice. Disease statistics from public schools 14, 22, 31, and 8. 3 schools showed normal patterns. A couple cases of chickenpox, seasonal colds, nothing alarming. But the 8th school, Vera ran her finger down the column. 47 cases of severe influenza in the last 2 months, 11 with complications, 3 hospitalized. School population of 800 students, nearly 6%. The office was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock and the distant sound of typewriters from the secretarial pool down the hall. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the view of Liberty Avenue below. Vera pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. The building's heating system was erratic, just like everything else in wartime Pittsburgh. Coal rationing meant some offices stayed cold while others sweltered. Her desk was positioned near the window, which gave her light during the day, but made her freeze when the temperature dropped. She had been staring at these numbers for 3 days now. Her supervisor, Dr. Raymond Kellerman, had assigned her the quarterly disease report as routine work. Check the numbers, file the report, move on. But Vera could not move on. The numbers would not let her. She opened the folder deeper. Last year, measles outbreak at school number 8, 22 children. Year before that, measles again, 18 cases. 3 years ago, Vera stopped, rereading the line. Diphtheria, 15 infected, 4 died. An 8-year-old girl, Dorothy Kowalski. A 10-year-old boy, Martin Sullivan. A 7-year-old boy, Philip Brennan. And a first grader, just 6 years old, Edmund Harper. Vera closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. 4 children. Diphtheria in 1941, when vaccination was mandatory and universal across Pennsylvania. The state had one of the most aggressive vaccination programs in the country. Every child was supposed to be vaccinated before entering school. Every year, boosters were administered. The system was designed to prevent exactly this kind of outbreak. So how had 15 children contracted diphtheria, and how had 4 of them died? She opened the medical records from school number 8, which she had requested a week ago under the pretense of routine analysis. The clerk at the school district office, a pinch-faced woman named Mrs. Drummond, had been reluctant, citing privacy concerns and procedure. But Vera had insisted, pulling rank she did not really have. County Health Authority, she had said firmly. Outbreak Investigation Protocol. Mandatory compliance under State Health Code Section 12-4. She had made up the section number. Mrs. Drummond had not known that. Now she flipped through the records, page after page. Vaccination records for every student. DTP administered. Dates recorded. Lot numbers noted. Measles vaccine administered. Dates recorded. Lot numbers noted. Polio vaccine administered. Everything marked down with neat precision. Signatures at the bottom of each page. Official stamps. All correct, all proper. But the children were getting sick as though they had never been vaccinated at all. Vera looked at the signatures beneath the vaccination entries. Same handwriting throughout hundreds of records. Neat, looping script with distinctive flourishes on the capital letters. The letter B had an elaborate curl. The F had an extended crossbar. School Nurse Beatrice Fallon. According to the employment records, she had been hired in August 1940. 4 years and 2 months on the job. Vera pulled out a separate sheet of paper and drew a timeline. August 1940, Beatrice Fallon hired. September 1940 through January 1941, normal disease rates. Then, February 1941, diphtheria outbreak. 15 cases, 4 deaths. After that, elevated rates of preventable diseases every year. Measles, mumps, whooping cough. All diseases that should have been rare in a vaccinated population. The outbreaks had started exactly 6 months after Fallon's appointment. 6 months would be enough time to build trust, establish routines, figure out how to manipulate the system without getting caught. Vera stood and walked to the window. October in Pittsburgh. Gray sky, rain, wet leaves plastered to the pavement. Somewhere out there in one of those gray buildings sat children, going to classes, playing during recess, eating lunch in the cafeteria, unaware that someone had stolen their protection, that someone had decided their lives were worth less than money. The war had changed everything. Shortages of everything from rubber to sugar to medical supplies. Black markets flourishing in every city. People making money any way they could. Vera had seen it in her own neighborhood. Mrs. Chen down the hall sold ration stamps. Mr. Kowalski in the apartment below traded in cigarettes and coffee. Everyone knew. Nobody reported it. Times were hard. People did what they had to do. But this? Stealing vaccines from children? Letting them die from preventable diseases? Because if Vera was right, and she felt it in every cell of her body, every instinct honed by 2 years of medical training and practice, Beatrice Fallon had not been vaccinating children for 4 years. She had been injecting them with something else. Saline solution? Water? Nothing. And the real vaccines, the expensive, carefully manufactured government-rationed vaccines, she was selling them, trading them, making money while children died. Vera returned to her desk and picked up the telephone receiver. Her hand hovered over the dial. Then she set it back down. You cannot simply call and accuse a school nurse of substituting vaccines, not without proof. Not without ironclad, irrefutable evidence that would stand up to scrutiny. Because if Vera was wrong, if there was some other explanation, her career would be over. She was already the youngest physician in the department, already fighting to be taken seriously by older male colleagues who thought women belonged in nursing, not medicine. One false accusation, and she would be finished. But if she was right and did nothing, more children would die. She looked at the clock. 4:30. The school clinic stayed open until 5. Time enough to get there, confront the nurse, take samples for testing. Vera grabbed her coat, her medical bag, and the blank inspection form she kept in her desk drawer for emergencies. She had never used it before. It was meant for genuine health department inspections, signed and authorized by the department head. This one was blank except for the letterhead. She folded it carefully and put it in her coat pocket. As she left the building, she passed Dr. Kellerman's office. The door was open. He looked up from his desk. Leaving early, Dr. Holloway? Field inspection, sir. School number 8. Following up on the disease statistics. Kellerman frowned. I did not authorize any field inspection. Routine follow-up, sir. Just checking their vaccine storage protocols. I will have the report on your desk Monday morning. She did not wait for him to respond, just walked quickly down the hall and out the door before he could call her back. The streetcar ride to Lawrenceville took 20 minutes. Vera sat near the back, medical bag on her lap, watching the city pass by through rain-streaked windows. Steel mills belching smoke despite the late hour, the forges running around the clock to meet wartime production quotas. Women in headscarves and work clothes hurrying home from factory shifts, their faces tired. A group of boys playing stickball in an alley, oblivious to the rain, their shouts echoing off brick walls. Normal life continuing despite the war, despite rationing, despite everything. Vera thought about the 4 children, Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. She had found their photographs in the school yearbook archive when she requested the medical records. The yearbooks had been stored in boxes in the basement of the school district office. Mrs. Drummond had grudgingly allowed Vera to look through them. Dorothy Kowalski. 3rd grade class photo, 1940. Thin girl with dark braids, wearing a white blouse with a Peter Pan collar. Eyes serious, looking directly at the camera. A gap between her front teeth visible in her slight smile. Martin Sullivan, 4th grade, 1940. Freckled boy with red hair and a wide smile, missing his 2 front teeth, ears that stuck out a little, a cowlick that refused to be tamed. Philip Brennan, 2nd grade, 1940. Serious expression behind round wire-rimmed glasses, dark hair neatly combed, a book visible on the desk in front of him. Edmund Harper, 1st grade, 1941. The youngest. Gap-toothed grin, blonde cowlick standing straight up despite obvious attempts to comb it down. He was laughing in the photo, mouth wide open. All dead within 2 weeks of each other. February 1941. Diphtheria outbreak. Vera had read the death certificates at the county records office. The details were clinical, impersonal. Cause of death? Respiratory failure secondary to diphtheria infection. But Vera knew what those words meant in practice. She had seen one case of diphtheria during her medical training, a 12-year-old boy brought to the emergency ward struggling to breathe. The characteristic gray membrane forming in his throat, blocking his airway. The desperate attempts to intubate, to create an opening, to give him air. The parents watching, helpless and terrified. The boy had died. Vera remembered his mother's scream when the doctor pronounced him dead. A sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than the throat, from the soul itself. And that had been just one child. Dorothy, Martin, Philip, and Edmund had all died within days of each other. 4 families, 4 sets of parents, 4 funerals in 1 month. All preventable. All preventable with 1 shot. 1 real vaccination. The streetcar lurched to a stop. Lawrenceville. Vera got off and walked 3 blocks through the rain to the school. School number 8 sat on the edge of the Lawrenceville district, near the Jones and Laughlin steel mill. A gray, 4-story brick building erected in the 1920s, solid and institutional. The playground was empty, puddles reflecting the gray sky. Swings hung motionless. A janitor was sweeping the front steps, pushing water and wet leaves into the gutter. Vera climbed the steps and entered through the main entrance. The hallway smelled of chalk dust and floor wax and wet wool from children's coats drying on hooks. The floors were scuffed linoleum, the walls painted institutional green halfway up and cream above. Student artwork hung on bulletin boards. Construction paper pumpkins and black cats for Halloween. A security guard sat at a small desk near the entrance. Elderly man with a limp and a grizzled mustache, reading a newspaper. He looked up as Vera approached. "Can I help you, miss?" Vera pulled out her identification card from the county health department. "Dr. Holloway, county health department. Here to see the school nurse. Routine inspection." The guard barely glanced at her credentials. White coat and medical bag were all the authority she needed. "2nd floor, room 204. Stairs are that way." He pointed down the hall. Vera nodded her thanks and walked toward the stairs, heels clicking on the linoleum. She passed empty classrooms, desks in neat rows. A few teachers were still in their rooms, grading papers or cleaning blackboards. None of them looked up. Vera climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. She was rehearsing what she would say. Professional, calm. Routine inspection, nothing to alarm anyone. Ask to see the vaccine storage. Take samples for quality control testing. Standard procedure. If Beatrice Fallon was innocent, she would cooperate. If she was guilty, she would resist. Either way, Vera would know. The 2nd floor hallway was quieter. Most of the classrooms were dark. Room 204 was at the far end, door slightly ajar, light visible inside. Vera paused outside the door and took a deep breath. Then she knocked lightly and pushed the door open. The school nurse's office was small and institutional. White walls, tile floor, a single window overlooking the playground. An examination table covered with white paper sat against one wall. A wooden desk cluttered with files occupied another wall. A locked glass cabinet held medical supplies. Bandages, antiseptic, aspirin bottles. In the corner hummed a white enameled icebox, the kind used for vaccine storage. Behind the desk sat a woman around 45 years old, heavy-set, with dyed red hair set in tight curls. She wore a white nurse's uniform, crisp and clean, with a name badge pinned to her collar. B. Fallon, RN. She was writing something in a ledger, head bent over the page, fountain pen moving in neat strokes. She did not look up immediately. Vera waited in the doorway, studying her. Thick fingers gripping the pen, wedding ring on her left hand, lipstick, bright red, carefully applied. Powder on her face, a little too heavy, settling into the lines around her eyes and mouth. After a long moment, Beatrice Fallon set down her pen and raised her eyes. "Yes? Can I help you?" Her voice was flat, unwelcoming. Her gaze moved over Vera, assessing, taking in the white coat, the medical bag, the youthful face, deciding whether to be cooperative or hostile. Vera stepped forward, extending her hand. "Dr. Vera Holloway, County Health Department. I am here to conduct a routine inspection of your medical facilities. Standard procedure under the new health codes." Fallon did not shake her hand. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossing over her ample chest. "Nobody told me about any inspection." Vera lowered her hand, keeping her expression pleasant. "Because it is routine. If we announce them in advance, it is not an inspection anymore. It is a scheduled visit. The new protocols require unannounced spot checks to ensure compliance with storage and handling regulations." "What new protocols?" Vera pulled the blank form from her pocket, unfolding it carefully so that Fallon could see the official County Health Department letterhead, but not the empty fields below. County Board Resolution 47B, enacted last spring. Quarterly inspections of all school health facilities, temperature logs, vaccine storage, inventory management, sanitation protocols. I have a checklist here that I need to complete. She had made up the resolution number, made up the quarterly inspection requirement, made up all of it. But she said it with confidence, with the authority of someone who knew the rules. Fallon's eyes narrowed. "I have not heard about any new codes. I have been a school nurse for 18 years. Nobody has ever inspected this clinic before." Well, things change, especially during wartime. The government is very concerned about maintaining public health standards. Outbreaks can affect war production, you understand. Workers staying home to care for sick children, that sort of thing. Vera was making it up as she went along, but it sounded plausible. Everything during the war was justified by the war effort. Fallon's fingers drummed once on the desk, then stilled. Her face was carefully neutral, but Vera saw the calculation in her eyes. Weighing risks, deciding how much to resist. "Fine," Fallon said finally. "What do you need to see?" "Let us start with your vaccine storage. May I see the icebox?" Fallon stood slowly. She was a big woman, tall and broad-shouldered. She moved around the desk, each step deliberate, and walked to the icebox in the corner. Her hand rested on the handle for a moment before she pulled it open. Vera looked inside. The icebox was clean and well organized. Several packages of vaccines arranged on the shelves. DTP in distinctive brown glass vials. Measles vaccine in clear glass. Polio vaccine in smaller vials. All correctly labeled, all neatly arranged. A thermometer hung inside showing 38 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect storage temperature. Everything looked correct. Too correct, perhaps. Too neat. Too perfect. Vera leaned closer, pretending to check the thermometer reading. She scanned the lot numbers on the vaccine packages, made a mental note of them. "Temperature is good," she said. "How often do you check it?" "Every morning when I arrive. Every afternoon before I leave. I log it here." Fallon pointed to a clipboard hanging on the wall next to the icebox. Vera examined the temperature log. Neat entries, twice daily, going back months. Every entry showed a temperature between 36 and 40 degrees. Never a deviation. Never a problem. Too perfect. "Very thorough," Vera said. "Now, I need to take a couple of vials for laboratory testing. Quality control. Standard procedure. We test samples from every school in the county to ensure the vaccines have been stored properly and remain effective. Fallon's hand, which had been resting on the icebox door, tightened. Her knuckles went white. I cannot give you any vials. I barely have enough as it is. The next shipment is not for 2 weeks. I only need 2 vials. 1 DTP. 1 measles. The county laboratory will provide replacements within 3 business days. No. The word came out flat and hard. Vera kept her voice calm, professional. Mrs. Fallon, this is not optional. It is part of the inspection protocol. If you refuse to provide samples, I will have to note that in my report as non-compliance with county health regulations. I do not care what you note. I am not giving you my vaccines. I need them for the vaccinations I have scheduled next week. 42 students. Every vial counts. Vera pulled out the blank form again, made a show of consulting it. According to my records, you received a shipment of vaccines on September 28th. That was 14 days ago. 200 DTP vials and 150 measles vials. Standard school allocation. At the recommended dosage, you should be using approximately 20 vials per month. That means you should still have approximately 180 DTP and 135 measles vials remaining. Is that correct? It was a bluff. Vera had no access to shipment records. She was guessing based on standard allocation formulas. But she said it with confidence, as if she had the records right in front of her. Fallon's face went pale. There were some breakages and some expired lots I had to dispose of. Vera looked up from the form, meeting Fallon's eyes. Then you have documentation of the disposal? All expired or damaged vaccines must be logged and countersigned by the school principal according to state regulations. May I see those records? I do not have them here. They are in storage, in the basement. I will need to see them before I complete my inspection. Shall we go to the basement now, or would you prefer to retrieve them and bring them here? Fallon's breathing had become audible. She was trapped. Either admit she had no records, or try to fake records that would not match the inspection timeline. Or give up the vials. Vera waited, counting silently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fallon made a decision. Her face hardened. She turned abruptly to the icebox, reached in, grabbed 2 vials without looking at them, and shoved them at Vera. Take them. Take them and get out of my clinic. Vera accepted the vials carefully, cradling them in her palm. 1 DTP, 1 measles, both properly sealed, labels intact. Thank you for your cooperation. I will note in my report that you were helpful despite initial concerns about supply. The replacement vials will arrive by Wednesday. She pulled the insulated container from her medical bag, the kind used for transporting temperature-sensitive materials. Wrapped each vial carefully in cotton padding, placed them in the container and sealed it. Fallon was standing rigid, fists clenched at her sides, face flushed with anger or fear or both. Is there anything else? No, that completes the inspection for today. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Fallon. Vera picked up her medical bag and the container and walked to the door. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure Fallon could hear it. Her hands wanted to shake, but she kept them steady. She walked out of the clinic, down the hall, down the stairs, past the security guard who did not look up from his newspaper, out the front door into the rain. Only when she was 2 blocks away, standing at the streetcar stop, did she allow herself to breathe. She had the vials. She had evidence. Now she needed to test them. And if they were fake, if they contained nothing but water or saline, then Beatrice Fallon was guilty of murder. 4 counts, maybe more, and Vera would have to prove it. The laboratory at the Allegheny County Health Department was in the basement of the building, a warren of small rooms with tile floors and bright fluorescent lights. Vera knew the lab supervisor, Helen Garrett, a woman around 50 years old with short-cropped gray hair and a no-nonsense manner. They had worked together on a typhoid outbreak in Homestead the previous year. 3 weeks of testing water samples from every well and pump in the neighborhood, tracking the spread of infection, identifying the contaminated source. Helen had worked 16-hour days without complaint, running test after test with meticulous precision. Vera trusted her. More importantly, she trusted Helen to keep a secret. It was 6:15 when Vera reached the laboratory. Most of the staff had gone home. Only Helen remained, hunched over a microscope in one of the back rooms, a cigarette balanced on the edge of an ashtray, smoke curling upward. Vera knocked on the doorframe. Helen looked up, squinting through the smoke. "Vera, what brings you down here at this hour?" "I need a favor. Urgent. Unofficial." Helen straightened, setting down her slide. She picked up the cigarette, took a long drag, and studied Vera's face. "What kind of favor?" Vera held out the insulated container. "I need you to test these. Tell me what is in them." Helen took the container, opened it carefully, and examined the vials without removing them. "What am I looking at?" "Vaccines. DTP and measles. From a school clinic. I need to know if they are real or fake." Helen's eyebrows rose. She set the container on the lab bench and pulled out one of the vials, holding it up to the light. "Where did you get these?" "School number 8 in Lawrenceville. The school nurse. I think she is substituting vaccines with saline or water, selling the real ones on the black market. Children are getting sick. 4 died 3 years ago." Helen set down the vial and looked at Vera for a long moment. "You have grounds for this accusation?" Vera pulled the folder from her bag, opened it, and spread the statistics on the lab bench. The disease rates, the outbreak patterns, the death certificates. 4 dead children in 1941. Diphtheria. Dorothy Kowalski, 8 years old. Martin Sullivan, 10. Philip Brennan, 7. Edmund Harper, 6. Then 2 measles outbreaks, totaling 40 children. Now 47 cases of severe influenza. All at the same school. All supposedly vaccinated. But they are getting sick like they were never vaccinated at all. Helen studied the numbers, her experienced eye picking out the patterns immediately. That is highly unusual. It is impossible. Unless the vaccines are fake. Helen tapped ash into the tray, her face thoughtful. "If you are right, this is criminal. Manslaughter at minimum. Maybe murder." "I know. And if you are wrong, they will crucify you for this. Unauthorized testing, theft of medical supplies, defamation of a medical professional. You could lose your license." "I know that too." Helen was silent for a moment. Then she crushed out her cigarette and pulled out another, lighting it with a practiced motion. "How did you get the vials?" "I told her I was conducting an official inspection. I implied I had authority I do not actually have. I took the vials without proper authorization. So, if this goes to trial, the evidence might be inadmissible." "Maybe. But if the vials are fake, that proves the pattern. It gives the authorities grounds to conduct a real investigation, search her home, audit her records, find the real vaccines if she has been stockpiling them." Helen exhaled smoke slowly. "When do you need the results?" "As soon as possible. Yesterday, if you can manage it." Helen smiled grimly. "Give me 24 hours. I will run a full analysis, protein content, antibody markers, sterility testing, microscopy, everything. If there is anything wrong with these vaccines, anything at all, I will find it." Vera felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "Thank you, Helen." "Do not thank me yet. Come back tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. I will have your answer." Vera nodded and turned to leave. Helen called after her. "Vera, be careful. If this nurse is what you think she is, If she has been doing this for 4 years and getting away with it, she is not stupid. She will fight back. I know. Vera did not sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed in her one-bedroom apartment on Penn Avenue, staring at the ceiling, thinking. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a brick building, small but clean. One room that served as bedroom and sitting room, a tiny kitchen alcove with a hot plate and sink, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But it was hers. After 4 years of medical school, living in dormitories and shared housing, having her own place had felt like luxury. Now she stared at the water stain on the ceiling, shaped vaguely like a bird in flight, and wondered if she had just destroyed her career. The radiator clanked and hissed, providing uneven heat. Outside, rain continued to fall. Occasionally a car passed on the street below, headlights cutting through the darkness. Vera's mind would not stop circling the same questions. What if the vials were real? What if there was some other explanation for the disease patterns? What if she had misread the statistics, jumped to conclusions, accused an innocent woman? Dr. Kellerman would be furious. He had not authorized the inspection. If Beatrice Fallon complained, if she contacted the county health department to verify Vera's credentials, the whole thing would unravel. Vera would be fired, possibly charged with impersonating an official inspector. Her medical license could be revoked. But what if she was right? What if those vials contained nothing but water? Then, 4 children had died because of Beatrice Fallon's greed. 4 children. Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. Vera got up at 3 in the morning, unable to lie still any longer. She went to the small desk by the window and opened the folder again. Pulled out the photograph she had copied from the school yearbooks. Dorothy Kowalski. Serious eyes, gap-toothed smile. 3rd grade. Dead at 8. Martin Sullivan. Freckles and red hair. 4th grade. Dead at 10. Philip Brennan. Glasses and a book. 2nd grade. Dead at 7. Edmund Harper. Laughing, cowlick standing up. 1st grade. Dead at 6. Vera had read the newspaper accounts of their deaths. Small notices in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Child dies of diphtheria. Lawrenceville family mourns loss. The articles were brief, clinical, just the facts. Name, age, cause of death, surviving family members. But behind each notice was a destroyed family. Parents who would never recover. Siblings traumatized, lives shattered. And if Vera was right, it had all been preventable. One real vaccine. One actual injection of protective material instead of water. That was all it would have taken. She put the photographs back in the folder and made coffee on the hot plate. Sat by the window and watched the sky slowly lighten from black to gray. Thursday morning, October 13th. 24 hours until she would have her answer. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Vera went to work, saw her scheduled patients, filled out reports, attended a staff meeting about winter influenza preparations. She smiled and nodded and answered questions, but her mind was elsewhere. At lunch, Dr. Kellerman called her into his office. "Dr. Holloway, I understand you conducted a field inspection yesterday at school number 8. Vera's heart jumped. "Yes, sir. Following up on the disease statistics. Checking vaccine storage protocols." Kellerman leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I received a telephone call this morning from the principal of that school. He wanted to confirm that we had sent an inspector. He said the school nurse was quite upset about your visit." Vera kept her face neutral. "I followed standard protocols, sir. Checked the temperature logs, reviewed the storage conditions, took samples for quality testing." "You took vaccine samples?" "2 vials. For the county laboratory, to verify proper storage and handling." Kellerman frowned. "That is not standard protocol, Dr. Holloway. We do not routinely test vaccines from school clinics. We trust the nurses to follow procedures." "With respect, sir, Perhaps we should not. The disease rates at school number 8 are significantly higher than at comparable schools. I wanted to rule out storage problems as a factor. And what did you find? The samples are being analyzed now. I should have results this evening. Kellerman studied her for a long moment. You are aware that taking vaccine samples without explicit authorization could be construed as theft of government property. I am aware, sir, but I believed it was necessary to protect public health. If the vaccines are being stored improperly, children are at risk. Very well. I expect a full report on my desk Monday morning, including the laboratory results and your recommendations. If there is a problem, we will address it through proper channels. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Vera left his office with her stomach in knots. Kellerman suspected something. He was giving her enough rope to either save herself or hang herself. Everything depended on what Helen found. At 6 o'clock that evening, Vera went to the laboratory. Helen was waiting for her in the same back room, cigarette in hand, expression grave. She handed Vera 2 sheets of paper without a word. Vera looked at the first sheet. Laboratory analysis, sample 1, lot number 4721-B, labeled as DTP vaccine. Expected components: diphtheria toxoid, tetanus toxoid, pertussis antigen suspended in aluminum phosphate adjuvant. Found: sodium chloride 0.9% solution, sterile water. Protein content, 0. Antibody stimulating capacity, 0. Conclusion: physiological saline solution. No vaccine components detected. Vera's hands started shaking. She looked at the second sheet. Sample 2, lot number 8834-A, labeled as measles vaccine. Expected components: live attenuated measles virus, stabilizers, growth medium. Found: distilled water, trace minerals consistent with tap water. Viral content, 0. Antibody stimulating capacity, 0. Conclusion: sterile water. No vaccine components detected. Vera sat down heavily on a lab stool. You are certain? There is no possibility of error? Helen's voice was flat, professional. I ran each test 3 times using different equipment. I had my assistant run independent tests without telling him what we were testing for. I compared the samples to control vaccines from our own stock. The results are unambiguous. Those vials contain nothing but saline and water. No vaccine, no active ingredients whatsoever. 4 years, Vera said quietly. She has been doing this for 4 years. Helen lit another cigarette. What are you going to do? Vera looked up. I do not know. If I go to Kellerman, he will ask how I got the samples. If I admit I took them without proper authorization, I could be fired. But if I do nothing, more children will die. Yes. Helen tapped ash into a tray. Then you go over his head. State Health Department in Harrisburg. Or the district attorney. Someone with enough authority that they cannot bury this. What if they do bury it? What if protecting the system is more important to them than protecting children? Then you go to the newspapers. Make it public. Force their hand. You have the evidence. You have the death certificates. You have the statistics. Make them face it. Vera stood, taking the laboratory reports. Can you give me certified copies? Official letterhead, your signature, laboratory seal? Helen was already pulling forms from a drawer. I will have them ready in 1 hour. And Vera, when this blows up, and it will blow up, you tell them I volunteered to do the testing, that I insisted on it when you showed me the statistics. Do not let them hang this all on you. Why would you do that? Helen looked at her steadily. Because 4 children are dead. Because this woman needs to be stopped. Because someone has to stand up. Might as well be us. Vera chose the State Health Department. The county level was too close, too vulnerable to local politics and pressure. She needed someone with statewide authority, someone who could shut down every school clinic in Pennsylvania if necessary. Friday morning, October 14th, Vera called in sick, told the receptionist she had a stomach bug and would be back Monday. Then she went to the train station and bought a ticket to Harrisburg. The train departed at 7:15, 3-hour journey through the Pennsylvania countryside. Vera sat by the window, folder on her lap, watching farms and small towns roll past. Morning sun breaking through clouds, illuminating fields of harvested corn, red barns, white farmhouses. Normal life continuing, unaware of the storm about to break. She had not called ahead, had not made an appointment. Surprise was her only advantage. If she gave them warning, they would have time to prepare defenses, to circle wagons, to protect their own. The Pennsylvania State Health Department occupied a granite building on Commonwealth Avenue near the Capitol. Imposing architecture, marble steps, columns flanking the entrance. Vera climbed the steps at 9:40 in the morning, coat buttoned against the October chill, folder under her arm. The lobby was all polished marble and echoing footsteps. A receptionist sat behind a heavy wooden desk, gray-haired woman with steel-rimmed glasses and a pursed mouth. Vera approached the desk. "I need to see the department head, Walter Morrison." The receptionist did not look up from her typewriter. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have evidence of a public health emergency, multiple child deaths, ongoing danger. I need to see him immediately." The receptionist finally looked up, skepticism written across her face. "Mr. Morrison does not see anyone without an appointment. If you would like to schedule—" Vera opened her folder and pulled out one of the death certificates, laid it on the desk in front of the woman. Dorothy Kowalski, 8 years old. Died February 14th, 1941. Cause of death? Diphtheria. She was supposedly vaccinated. She was actually injected with water by a school nurse who was selling the real vaccines. 3 other children died the same way. Dozens more have been sickened. This is happening right now, today. And if Mr. Morrison does not see me in the next 10 minutes, I am going to the Harrisburg Patriot with this story, and I will tell them that the state health department refused to act. The receptionist's face went pale. She picked up the telephone with shaking hands. "Mr. Morrison? There is a doctor here who says—" "Yes, sir. A public health emergency. Child deaths. She is quite insistent." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." She hung up and pointed to the stairs. "3rd floor, office 301. He will see you now." Walter Morrison's office was large and wood-paneled, with tall windows overlooking the Capitol dome. The walls were lined with bookshelves holding medical texts and public health reports. A large desk dominated the center of the room, its surface covered with papers and files. Morrison himself was a tall man, broad-shouldered, around 60 years old. Gray hair, gray mustache, severe expression. He stood behind his desk as Vera entered, not offering to shake hands. "Who are you, and what is the meaning of bursting into the state health department making accusations?" His voice was deep, authoritative, used to being obeyed. Vera set her folder on his desk and opened it, laying out the materials one by one. The statistical analysis showing the outbreak patterns at school number 8. The comparison charts showing that school's disease rates versus other schools. The medical records showing vaccinations that did not work. The photographs of the 4 dead children. The death certificates. The laboratory analysis results from Helen Garrett, official letterhead and seal visible at the top. Morrison sat down slowly as she arranged the evidence. He picked up the laboratory report first, read it carefully, then the death certificates, then the statistics. His face grew darker with each page. When he finished, he looked up at her. "Who are you?" "Dr. Vera Holloway, Allegheny County Health Department, pediatrician. I have been tracking disease patterns in Pittsburgh area schools for the past 2 years." "And where did you obtain vaccine samples for testing?" I took them from the school clinic, school number 8, from the nurse's office. Under whose authority? My own. There was no time to go through official channels. Children are being vaccinated right now, this week, with fake vaccines. Every day of delay means more children at risk. Morrison's expression was granite. Do you realize you have committed a serious professional violation? That you conducted an unauthorized inspection, misrepresented your authority, and seized government property without proper authorization? That these test results could be ruled inadmissible in any legal proceeding because they were obtained improperly? Vera leaned forward, hands flat on his desk, meeting his eyes. Mr. Morrison, 4 children are dead. Dorothy Kowalski, 8 years old. Martin Sullivan, 10. Philip Brennan, 7. Edmund Harper, 6. They died in February 1941 from diphtheria, a disease that should have been prevented by vaccination. Except they never received real vaccinations. They received water. For 3 years, I have watched disease rates climb at that school. Measles outbreaks, influenza epidemics, 47 severe cases just in the last 2 months. Every child with a vaccination record. Every child supposedly protected. Every child actually vulnerable. Morrison's jaw tightened. You have proof that this nurse, Beatrice Fallon, is responsible? I have proof that the vaccines in her clinic are fake. I have proof that every major disease outbreak at that school began after she was hired in August 1940. I have proof that over 400 children in her care have vaccination records showing protection they do not actually have. Circumstantial, Morrison said. Then send your own inspectors. Test more samples from her clinic. Search her home. But do it today, now, before she has time to destroy evidence. Because every hour we delay is another hour children remain unprotected. Morrison stared at her for a long moment. She could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing political consequences, thinking about how this would look, what it would mean, how it would affect his department. Then he picked up the telephone. Get me the Attorney General's office immediately. Tell them it is urgent. Yes, I will hold. Hello, Tom? Walter Morrison. I need you to authorize an emergency health inspection in Allegheny County. Possible criminal activity, child endangerment. We need police support. Yes, serious. I am looking at laboratory evidence right now. I will send everything over. We need this done today, Tom. Today. Thank you. He made 3 more calls. Pennsylvania Medical Board, Pittsburgh Field Office, Allegheny County Sheriff. When he finished, he looked at Vera. There will be inspectors at school number 8 within 2 hours. They will conduct a full audit, inventory every vial, test samples, review records. If there is evidence of wrongdoing, they will seize everything and place the nurse under investigation. If your allegations are correct, she will be arrested. And if I am wrong? Then you will face disciplinary proceedings, possibly criminal charges, impersonating an official inspector, theft, false accusations. Your career will be over. I understand. Morrison leaned back in his chair. You have just started something that is going to tear apart the public health system in this state. I hope you are right. Because if you are wrong, you will spend the rest of your life regretting this. I am not wrong. Vera took the afternoon train back to Pittsburgh, arrived at 4 o'clock, went straight to her apartment, too anxious to go to the office, too nervous to face Dr. Kellerman's questions. She paced her small apartment, waiting for news. Made coffee she did not drink. Tried to read a medical journal but could not focus on the words. At 6:30, the telephone rang. The building had one telephone in the hallway downstairs. Mrs. Chen from down the hall knocked on Vera's door. Telephone for you, Dr. Holloway. Vera ran downstairs, picked up the receiver with shaking hands. Hello? Dr. Holloway, this is Inspector Frank Garrett, Pennsylvania State Health Department. I am calling from school number 8 in Pittsburgh. We have completed the initial inspection. And? We found significant irregularities. The vaccine inventory does not match shipping records. We tested 6 vials from the clinic icebox. All 6 contained either saline or distilled water. No active vaccine components. Vera's legs went weak. She leaned against the wall. And the nurse? We searched her home with a police warrant. We found a locked trunk in her basement. Inside were 217 vials of vaccines: D, TP, measles, polio, tetanus, all government issued, all stolen from school shipments. Street value approximately $6,000. Oh my God. Beatrice Fallon has been arrested. She is being held at the Allegheny County Jail, charged with fraud, theft of government property, and 4 counts of manslaughter. More charges may be filed pending further investigation. Vera could not speak. The relief and horror of it all crashed over her in waves. Dr. Holloway? Are you there? Yes, I am here. Thank you for calling. No, Dr. Holloway. Thank you. You may have saved hundreds of children's lives. We are expanding the investigation statewide, checking other schools, other nurses. If this is happening elsewhere, we will find it. The newspapers broke the story the next morning. Saturday, October 15th, 1944. Nurse arrested in vaccine fraud scheme. 4 children dead, hundreds at risk. County doctor exposes black market in children's medicine. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette ran it on the front page, displacing war news. A photograph of Beatrice Fallon being led from her home in handcuffs. A photograph of school number 8, and a photograph of Vera, young and serious in her white coat, stethoscope around her neck. The phone in Vera's building rang constantly all weekend. Reporters wanting interviews, other health departments wanting information, parents wanting to know if their children were safe. Dr. Kellerman called Sunday morning. Dr. Holloway, I owe you an apology. You took a tremendous risk. You could have been wrong. You could have destroyed your career. But you were right, and you may have saved thousands of lives. Thank you, sir. Come to my office Monday morning. We need to talk about your role in the expanded investigation. The investigation metastasized. Once inspectors started looking, once they stopped assuming everything was fine, they found more. School number 14 in Philadelphia, nurse named Catherine Royce. Same pattern. Sick children, fake vaccines, basement full of real ones. Arrested November 10th. School number 7 in Scranton. Alice Brennan, no relation to Philip. Same scheme, running for 2 years. Arrested November 15th. School number 22 in Erie. School number 19 in Allentown. School number 11 in Reading. School number 5 in Lancaster. By December, 11 nurses had been arrested across Pennsylvania. By the end of January 1945, the total reached 17. 11 were eventually convicted. 6 accepted plea bargains. The rest went to trial. The scandal spread beyond Pennsylvania. Ohio launched investigations, found 3 cases. New York found 7, Maryland 2, West Virginia 4, New Jersey 5. The system had failed. For years, maybe decades, it had operated on trust. Nurses were professionals, dedicated caregivers, trusted members of the community. No one had thought to check their work. No one had thought anyone would do something so monstrous as to steal protection from children. And in that gap between trust and oversight, children had died. The exact count was impossible to determine. How many children contracted preventable diseases because of fake vaccines? How many died? The investigators tried to calculate it, cross-referenced vaccination records with disease reports, compared death rates in affected schools versus unaffected schools. The conservative estimate: 4,000 children exposed to preventable diseases, 137 hospitalizations, 43 deaths, 43 children, dead because nurses stole their protection. Vera became famous. The young doctor who had refused to look away, who had risked everything to expose the truth. The nurse detective, the newspapers called her. The Saturday Evening Post sent a reporter and photographer, did a 6-page feature story with dramatic photographs. Vera in her office studying disease reports. Vera visiting a school clinic, checking vaccines. Vera in the laboratory with Helen Garrett. The article ran in February 1945. Circulation 3 million. Vera received letters from across the country, hundreds of them. Some praised her courage, called her a hero, thanked her for protecting children. Thank you for being brave when no one else was. Thank you for trusting your instincts. Thank you for fighting for children who could not fight for themselves. Others condemned her. How dare she destroy trust in the medical profession? How dare she make parents afraid of vaccines? How dare she ruin the lives of dedicated nurses who were just trying to survive in hard times? You have destroyed the public health system. You have made people fear doctors and nurses. The damage you have done will take generations to repair. Some letters threatened violence. Anonymous, postmarked from different cities, all saying variations of the same thing. You are a traitor to your profession. You will pay for this. Watch your back. Vera kept them all in a folder, showed the threatening ones to police. They said there was nothing they could do unless the threats became more specific. One letter came in late January. Pink envelope, shaky handwriting, postmarked Philadelphia. Dear Dr. Holloway, my name is Eleanor Watts. You do not know me, but I want you to know what you did for me. My son Thomas died of measles in March 1943. He was 9 years old. I brought him to the school clinic every year from the time he entered kindergarten, made sure he got every vaccination on schedule. Measles, diphtheria, whooping cough, everything. I did everything the doctors told me to do. I followed every rule. I was a good mother. And he still died. For 2 years, I have blamed myself. I thought maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I missed an appointment. Maybe I brought him to the clinic on the wrong day. Maybe I fed him the wrong food or let him play outside when he should have stayed in. Maybe somehow, some way, I failed him. I could not sleep, could not eat, could not stop thinking about what I might have done differently. Now I know the truth. The nurse at Thomas's school was one of the ones arrested, Catherine Royce. She had been selling the vaccines. My Thomas never got real protection. He died because someone stole it from him. I do not know if this makes it better or worse. He is still gone, still dead, still buried in Mount Lebanon Cemetery. But at least now I know. At least now I can stop blaming myself. At least now I know I did everything I could. I was a good mother. I did not fail him. Someone else failed him. Someone evil. Someone who valued money more than children's lives. Thank you for exposing her. Thank you for stopping her. Thank you for making sure she will never hurt another child. Thank you for giving me back my sanity, for letting me stop punishing myself for something that was not my fault. God bless you, Dr. Holloway. Eleanor Watts. Vera read that letter 20 times, cried every time, kept it in her desk drawer for the rest of her life. The trial of Beatrice Fallon began in January 1945 and lasted 3 weeks. The courtroom in the Allegheny County Courthouse was packed every day. Reporters from every major newspaper, families of victims, medical professionals, curious onlookers drawn by the scandal. Vera testified on the 4th day. She wore her best suit, navy blue with white trim, took the oath, sat in the witness box, and told the story from beginning to end. The statistics that made no sense. The decision to investigate. The confrontation in the school clinic. The bluff that got her the vaccine samples. The laboratory results that confirmed her suspicions. The defense attorney was a man named Charles Whitmore. Expensive tailored suit, Confident manner, reputation for getting guilty clients acquitted through technical arguments. He stood and approached the witness box. Dr. Holloway, is it not true that you obtained those vaccine samples illegally? I obtained them without formal authorization, yes. And is it not true that you lied to my client to get them? That you claimed to have authority you did not actually possess? I told her I was conducting an inspection. I did not specify the exact nature of my authority. You impersonated an official inspector. I identified myself as a doctor from the county health department, which I am. But you claimed to be conducting an officially authorized inspection, which you were not. I believed children were in danger. I did what was necessary to confirm that belief and protect them. Whitmore smiled coldly. A noble sentiment, but the fact remains you violated proper procedure. You exceeded your authority. You obtained evidence through deception and without authorization. Why should this jury trust anything you say? Vera looked directly at the jury. Because 4 children are dead. Dorothy Kowalski, Martin Sullivan, Philip Brennan, Edmund Harper, and the vials taken from Mrs. Fallon's clinic contain nothing but salt water and distilled water. Those are facts. My methods may have been irregular, but the results are not in question. The vaccines were fake. The children died. That is the truth. Whitmore tried a different angle, but you cannot prove that those specific children died because of my client's actions, can you? Diphtheria outbreaks occur even in vaccinated populations. Vaccines are not 100% effective. Is that not correct? Vaccines are 95 to 98% effective when properly administered, but 0% effective when they contain only water. You are speculating. I am stating medical fact. The prosecution brought Helen Garrett next. She testified about the laboratory analysis, brought actual vaccine vials into the courtroom, showed the jury real vaccine next to fake vaccine, explained the tests in detail, demonstrated with slides and microscope images the presence of active components in real vaccines versus the absence in the confiscated samples. Then they called the families. Catherine Sullivan, Martin's mother, thin woman in black dress, face gaunt with years of grief, voice barely above a whisper as she described her son's death. How he had been healthy one day, sick the next. How fast the disease progressed. How she had held his hand as he struggled to breathe. How she had watched him die, helpless to save him. I trusted the school, she said, tears streaming down her face. I trusted the nurse. I thought my boy was protected. I thought I had done everything right. Joseph Kowalski, Dorothy's father. Big man, steel worker, hands calloused from years in the mills. Broke down completely on the stand. Could barely speak through his sobs. She was 8 years old. My little girl. She liked to read. She wanted to be a teacher. She was everything. Philip Brennan's parents. Edmund Harper's parents. Each one telling the same story. Healthy children. Sudden illness. Swift decline. Death. The defense tried to argue that correlation was not causation, that the deaths could not be definitively linked to the vaccine substitution, that diphtheria outbreaks happened even in properly vaccinated populations. The prosecution brought in expert witnesses, epidemiologists from Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Nathan Frost, elderly man with white beard and authoritative manner. He presented statistical analysis. In a properly vaccinated population, we would expect diphtheria mortality rate of less than 1%. In school number 8 during the February 1941 outbreak, the mortality rate was 26%, 4 deaths out of 15 cases. The statistical probability that this occurred by chance in a vaccinated population is less than 1 in 10,000. The only reasonable explanation is that the population was not actually vaccinated. The defense brought their own expert, a doctor from a small college in Ohio, who argued that vaccine effectiveness varied widely, that storage conditions affected potency, that many factors could explain the high mortality rate. The prosecution dismantled him on cross-examination. pointed out that he had no experience with large-scale vaccination programs, that his published research was in an unrelated field, that he was being paid $500 to testify. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Beatrice Fallon showed no emotion when the verdict was read, sat stone-faced, hands folded in her lap. The judge sentenced her 2 weeks later, 15 years in the Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution at Muncie, the women's prison. She served 12 years, released in 1957 for good behavior. But the case did not end with Beatrice Fallon. The scandal had exposed a systemic failure. How had so many nurses in so many schools committed the same fraud without anyone noticing? The Pennsylvania State Legislature held hearings, public sessions that lasted weeks, testimony from health officials, school administrators, nurses, doctors, parents, finger-pointing and blame, investigations into who knew what and when. The answer was uncomfortable. The system had operated entirely on trust. Nurses kept their own records, logged their own inventory, reported their own vaccination numbers. There was no oversight, no spot checks, no verification, no way to detect fraud unless someone got suspicious and investigated. The legislature acted. In March 1946, they passed the Vaccine Accountability Act, comprehensive legislation that rebuilt the system from the ground up. All vaccines had to be logged in a central state registry, every vial tracked from manufacturer to administration, lot numbers recorded, dates recorded, administrators recorded, random inspections of school clinics, unannounced, conducted by county health departments at least quarterly, oversight committees to review vaccination rates and disease patterns, looking for statistical anomalies, surprise audits of vaccine inventory, comparing shipping manifests to usage logs to on-hand supply. Any discrepancy triggered an immediate investigation. Criminal penalties for vaccine theft or substitution. Minimum 10 years in prison. Permanent loss of medical license. The law passed unanimously. Signed by the governor in a public ceremony with great fanfare. Reporters and cameras present. The governor praising Vera by name. Dr. Vera Holloway's courage in exposing this terrible crime has led to reforms that will protect children for generations to come. Vera attended the ceremony, stood awkwardly while people applauded, shook hands with legislators, smiled for photographs. But all she could think about was 4 children who would never benefit from these reforms. Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. Dead 3 years before the system changed. Other states followed Pennsylvania's lead. Ohio passed similar legislation in 1947, New York in 1948, Maryland and New Jersey in 1949. By 1950, 42 states had vaccine accountability laws. By 1955, all 48 states. The fraud rate dropped dramatically. Not to zero, there were still isolated cases, still people who tried to game the system, but the systematic, widespread fraud that had killed dozens of children became rare. Vera was promoted in April 1946, Chief Pediatric Inspector for Allegheny County, youngest person ever to hold the position, age 25. Her job was to train other inspectors, develop protocols, write manuals, implement the new accountability system. She threw herself into the work with fierce dedication. She traveled constantly. Every school in the county, eventually every school in western Pennsylvania, taught inspectors what to look for, how to spot discrepancies in records, how to check vaccine storage conditions, how to verify lot numbers against shipping manifests, how to interview nurses in ways that revealed evasions and lies. She wrote a comprehensive manual, 200 pages. The Holloway Protocols, people called it, though the official title was Vaccine Inspection and Accountability Procedures. Distributed to health departments across the country, became the standard reference. She gave lectures at medical schools, University of Pittsburgh, Temple, Jefferson Medical College, testified before legislative committees in a dozen states, consulted on public health policy at the federal level. And she never married, never had children of her own. Her work was her life. People asked her about it sometimes. Do you regret not having a family? She would think about the 4 children, Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund, about Eleanor Watts's son, Thomas, about all the children whose names she knew and whose faces haunted her. I have thousands of children, she would say. Every child who gets a real vaccine because of the system we built. They are my family. The years passed. Vera aged. The work continued. 1950. Polio epidemic sweeping the country. Children in iron lungs. Parents terrified. The Salk vaccine still in development. Vera coordinated vaccination efforts in Pittsburgh, helped design distribution protocols, prepared for the day when the vaccine would be available. 1955. Salk vaccine approved. Mass vaccination campaigns. Vera oversaw distribution in Allegheny County, made sure every vial was tracked, every dose accounted for. 1960. Measles still killing children. Vaccine development ongoing. Vera pushed for faster approval, better distribution, wider access. 1961. Vera was 40 years old, still chief inspector, still traveling to schools, checking ice boxes, reviewing records. She got a call from Ohio. Measles outbreak in Cleveland. School with high vaccination rates, but children getting sick anyway. Could she help? She took the train to Cleveland, met with the local health inspector, young man named David Warren, fresh from medical school. Dr. Holloway, he said, shaking her hand with obvious awe, I have read your manual. It is brilliant. I am honored to work with you. Just call me Vera. Show me what you have found. They visited the school together. East Side Elementary, brick building in a working-class neighborhood. The school nurse was Florence Mitchell, mid-50s, pleasant manner, seemed genuinely cooperative. The vaccination records looked perfect. Neat entries, consistent documentation, appropriate lot numbers. But the children were getting sick. Vera asked to see the vaccines. Mitchell opened the clinic icebox, showed them the vials. Everything appeared correct. May I examine one? Of course. Vera picked up a vial of measles vaccine, held it to the light. The suspension should be slightly cloudy, live virus particles creating turbidity. This was too clear. She shook it gently. No settling, no particles. This does not look right. She tested 3 vials, sent them to the Cleveland laboratory. Results came back 2 days later. Water. All 3 vials contained nothing but distilled water. Florence Mitchell confessed immediately when confronted, broke down crying in her clinic. My grandson, she said, he has polio. The doctors said there is nothing they can do. But I thought, maybe if I gave him extra doses of vaccine, stronger doses, maybe it would help. So I took the polio vaccines home, gave them to him. But it did not work. You cannot cure polio with a vaccine. And the other vaccines? I needed to make the inventory balance. So I took some measles, some DTP, replaced them with water. I thought it would just be temporary. But then more shipments came, and I took more, and it kept going. Your grandson, where is he now? Mitchell's face crumpled. He died 3 weeks ago. Florence Mitchell was convicted of negligent endangerment, sentenced to 3 years suspended sentence, permanent loss of nursing license. Vera testified at the trial. The judge asked her opinion. Do you think Mrs. Mitchell deserves leniency, given that she was trying to save her grandson? Vera chose her words carefully. I understand desperation. I understand loving a child so much you would do anything to save them. But Mrs. Mitchell was responsible for hundreds of other children, healthy children who trusted her to protect them. Her grandson was already sick. Nothing she did could change that. But the children in her care were vulnerable. She betrayed that trust. Love does not excuse harm. The judge agreed. 1964. Vera was 43, still working, still inspecting schools. She received a phone call at her office. Woman's voice, nervous. "Dr. Holloway? This is Patricia Sullivan. Do you remember me?" Vera searched her memory. Sullivan. Martin Sullivan. He died in the 1941 outbreak. Yes, Patricia, his sister. You were 12 years old. I was. I wanted to call you, to thank you. Vera sat down, heart suddenly pounding. Thank me for what? For everything. For investigating, for exposing what happened, for coming to our house after the trial. Vera remembered. The Sullivan family had been destroyed by Martin's death. His mother, Catherine, had barely been able to function. Vera had visited them several times in the months after Beatrice Fallon's conviction, sat with them, answered their questions, helped them understand that it was not their fault. I remember, Vera said softly. After Martin died, I was terrified of everything. Terrified of doctors, of hospitals, of needles. My mother wanted to stop taking me to clinics altogether. But you came to our house. You sat with us for hours. You explained what had happened. You showed us that it was not the vaccines that killed Martin. It was the absence of real vaccine. You convinced my mother to let me continue getting vaccinated. And you did? You got your vaccinations? Yes, all of them. DTP, measles, polio, everything. I grew up healthy. And Dr. Holloway, I became a nurse because of you. I work at Children's Hospital now, pediatric ward. I have been there for 20 years. Vera found she could not speak. Tears were streaming down her face. Are you there? Yes, I am here. I am just... Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for calling. Thank you for telling me this. I should have called sooner. But I wanted to wait until I had accomplished something. Last month, I was promoted to head nurse of the pediatric ward. And I check everything, Dr. Holloway. Every vaccine, every lot number, every seal. I make sure no child ever goes through what Martin went through. I learned that from you. You are doing important work. I learned from the best. 1965. Vera received a letter. Plain envelope, no return address, postmark from a small town in western Pennsylvania. She opened it. Vera, I am writing because I want you to know. I do not regret what I did. Yes, 4 children died. Yes, it is terrible. But I earned money. Good money. I fed my family. We survived the depression. My son went to college, became an engineer. My daughter married well, has a good life. We had food when our neighbors were starving. We had heat when others froze. And you destroyed that. You destroyed me. You destroyed dozens of other nurses who were just trying to survive. 17 nurses arrested, 11 convicted, families torn apart, children growing up visiting their mothers in prison, all because of your investigation. You think you are a hero. You think you saved lives. But you destroyed more than you saved. The nurses you put in prison, their families suffered. Their children went hungry. Their husbands left them. All for your sense of justice. You are not better than me. You just happen to be on the winning side. And the children, they die anyway. From diseases, from accidents, from wars. Nothing saves them forever. Your precious vaccines just delay the inevitable. You will die knowing you hurt more people than you helped. Beatrice Fallon Vera read the letter 3 times, then took it to the kitchen sink and burned it. Watched the paper curl and blacken, the words disappearing into ash. It was not the first letter from Fallon. This was the 5th. They came every few months, each one angrier, more bitter than the last. Vera never replied. What would be the point? But the words stuck in her head. You destroyed more lives than you saved. Was it true? Vera thought about it for days. The nurses in prison, 11 women, their families suffering, their children growing up with imprisoned mothers. That was real. That was genuine harm. But the children who got real vaccines because of the new system, who did not get diphtheria, did not get measles, did not die. How many? The fraud rate had dropped 92%. Before the reforms, an estimated 4,000 children per year were exposed to preventable diseases because of vaccine fraud. After the reforms, that number dropped to less than 300. Over 20 years, that was 70,000 children protected, hundreds of deaths prevented, hundreds of lives saved versus 11 lives disrupted. The math was clear. But Vera still wondered if Fallon was right, if the cost had been too high, if there had been another way. She would never know. 1972. Vera was 51. The measles vaccine was now widely available. Mumps vaccine too. Polio was nearly eradicated in the United States. The system worked. The vaccines worked. Children were protected. But new problems were emerging. Parents were starting to refuse vaccines, not because they distrusted nurses, but because they distrusted the vaccines themselves. Rumors spreading. Vaccines cause brain damage. Vaccines cause autism. Vaccines are more dangerous than the diseases. It started small, a few families here and there, but it was growing. Vera was called to a school in Squirrel Hill. Affluent neighborhood, educated parents. The principal was frustrated. "Dr. Holloway, we have 15 families refusing to vaccinate. They have formed a group, Mothers for Medical Freedom. They are holding meetings, distributing pamphlets. I do not know how to respond." Vera met with them in the school library. 15 women, well-dressed, articulate. The leader was Margaret Spencer, wife of a lawyer, mother of 3. "Dr. Holloway," Mrs. Spencer said, "we appreciate your work exposing vaccine fraud. We truly do. That took courage. But it also proved that the medical establishment cannot always be trusted. So we are asking questions. We are demanding proof that vaccines are safe." Vera nodded. "Asking questions is good. You should ask questions. That is what I did." "Exactly. So you understand our concerns." "What concerns specifically?" Mrs. Spencer pulled out newspaper clippings, articles about children who had reactions to vaccines, children who developed seizures, children who died. How do we know vaccines are safe? How do we know the risks are worth it? Vera took the clippings, read them carefully. This article about the child who died after DTP vaccination. Do you know what happened? The vaccine killed him. No. He had a severe allergic reaction, which is extremely rare, less than 1 in a million doses. He would also have died if exposed to diphtheria, because allergic reactions to vaccines often indicate underlying immune disorders that make the actual diseases even more dangerous. You cannot be certain of that. Actually, I can. I read the medical examiner's full report. The child had an undiagnosed immune deficiency. The vaccine triggered a reaction, but the disease would have killed him just as surely. Mrs. Spencer's expression hardened. You are asking us to trust your interpretation, to risk our children's lives based on your say-so. No, I am asking you to look at the numbers. Last year in Pennsylvania, 0 children died from vaccine reactions. 0. But 17 children died from measles, 12 from diphtheria, 8 from whooping cough, all unvaccinated. Those are facts. Those are numbers you can verify yourself. Another mother spoke up. But how do we know those numbers are real? How do we know you are not covering up vaccine deaths the way those nurses covered up vaccine fraud? Vera felt a flash of anger. I am the person who exposed the fraud. I risked my career to tell the truth. Why would I lie now? Maybe you do not know you are being lied to. Maybe the vaccine manufacturers are hiding the risks. Then demand transparency. Demand independent testing. Demand public disclosure of every adverse reaction. I support that completely. But do not refuse to protect your children while you wait for perfect information. Perfect information does not exist, and in the meantime, they are vulnerable. We will take our chances. Then you are gambling with their lives. The meeting ended badly. The mothers refused to vaccinate. 2 months later, measles outbreak at the Squirrel Hill School. 18 children infected. 16 from families who had refused vaccination. One child, 7-year-old Rebecca Spencer, Margaret's youngest daughter, developed encephalitis, brain inflammation. She survived, but with permanent damage, speech impairment, motor control problems, would need special education for the rest of her life. Margaret Spencer wrote to Vera, "You were right. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting my daughter. Instead, I destroyed her future. I will have to live with that for the rest of my life." Vera did not reply. What could she say? The damage was done. Rebecca would never fully recover. All Vera could do was keep fighting, keep educating, keep trying to make people understand. 1985. Vera retired at age 64, mandatory retirement age. She fought it, argued she was still capable, still needed. But the rules were rules. 41 years in public health, over 2,000 schools inspected, 3 generations of health inspectors trained, standards written that became national, then international policy. Her farewell party was held at the Allegheny County Health Department. 300 people attended. Colleagues, students, nurses she had trained, inspectors she had mentored, families whose children she had saved. The county executive presented her with a plaque. In recognition of 41 years of dedicated service protecting the children of Pennsylvania, Vera gave a brief speech. "I did not do this alone. Every person in this room played a part. Every inspection you conducted, every record you verified, every vial you tested, you protected children. That is the work. Not glory, not recognition, not awards. Just the daily work of keeping children safe. Thank you for doing it. Please keep doing it." Applause, hugs, tears. Then it was over. Vera cleaned out her office, carried boxes to her car, drove to her new home. She had bought a small house in Mount Lebanon. Quiet suburb, tree-lined streets, small yard. She planted a garden. Roses, tomatoes, herbs. Tended it carefully. Read medical journals. Wrote letters to editors when she disagreed with articles. Wrote to legislators about vaccine policy. Stayed involved, even in retirement. In November, a letter arrived. Expensive stationery, careful handwriting. Dear Dr. Holloway, my name is Margaret Fallon Brewster. I am Beatrice Fallon's daughter. My mother died last month. Heart attack. She was 70 years old. Before she died, she asked me to write to you. She wanted you to know something. In her last year, after her cancer diagnosis, she changed. Started thinking about her life differently. The anger faded. The bitterness went away. She told me that the 4 children haunted her. Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. She dreamed about them constantly. Saw their faces, heard their voices asking why. She said for 40 years she had convinced herself it was not her fault, that she was just trying to survive, that the system was corrupt and she was adapting to it, that parents were responsible for their own children. But in the end, she knew the truth. She had killed those children. Not with a weapon, but with greed. She had valued money more than lives. She wanted you to know that you were right, that you did the right thing, that the children you saved outnumber the families you hurt. She asked me to tell you she was sorry. I do not know if that matters after 40 years, but I thought you should know. She also wanted you to know that her son, my brother, became a doctor because of what happened. He works in public health in Philadelphia, dedicates his career to protecting children. Your investigation changed our family too. Sincerely, Margaret Fallon Brewster. Vera read the letter 5 times, folded it carefully, put it in a box with Eleanor Watts's letter from 1945. 2 letters, grief and apology, both connected to the same tragedy. She did not know how to feel. Relieved that Fallon finally understood? Angry that it took 40 years and terminal cancer? Sad that the children were still dead regardless? All of it. None of it. She put the box away and went to work in her garden. 1998. Vera was 77, living alone in the same house. Her health failing. Arthritis made her hands stiff. Heart problems meant she tired easily. She could not garden anymore. Hired a service to maintain the yard. One April afternoon, her doorbell rang. She answered slowly, leaning heavily on her cane. A young woman stood on the porch. Early 30s, dark hair and a ponytail, warm smile. "Dr. Holloway?" "Yes." "My name is Helen Kowalski. I am Dorothy Kowalski's niece." Vera's breath caught. Dorothy. My father was her older brother. He was 14 when she died. It destroyed him for years. After your investigation, after the truth came out, he was able to heal. He understood it was not his fault. Not our family's fault. Someone had stolen Dorothy's protection. "Come in," Vera said. "Please." They sat in the living room. Helen explained. "My father became a doctor because of what happened. Dedicated his career to public health. Made sure every child in his care got real protection. He died 5 years ago, but before he died, he made me promise to find you. To thank you. I never saved Dorothy. But you saved me. And my children. My father made absolutely certain we got every vaccination. Made sure we understood why it mattered. Because of you, our family learned that protecting children is the most important work there is." They talked for 2 hours. About vaccines, about trust, about the long reach of consequences. When Helen left, Vera sat in her chair and cried. Not from sadness, from relief. 43 years. The children had been dead 43 years. But their deaths had not been meaningless. Dorothy had died, but Helen lived, and Helen's children lived. Some survived because 4 did not. That had to count for something. 2004. Vera was 83. Living in a nursing home now, Autumn Hills and Shadyside. Her health too frail for independent living. She read newspapers every day, watched news on the television in the common room, kept up with the world as well as she could. Vaccine controversies in the news, autism fears, mercury concerns, parents refusing to vaccinate, measles outbreaks in communities with low vaccination rates. Vera wrote letters, shaky handwriting on lined paper, to newspapers, to health departments, to anyone who would listen. The message never changed. 4 children died in 1941. Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. They died because someone stole their protection. Do not let that happen again. Do not refuse protection out of fear. Learn from history. Vaccinate your children. Some letters were published, some were not. Vera did not know if they made a difference, but she kept writing. 2007, January 15th. Vera Holloway died in her sleep at Autumn Hills Nursing Home. Peaceful death. Heart failure. She was 86 years old. The obituary in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette ran the next day. Dr. Vera Holloway, 86, pioneer in public health, exposed vaccine fraud. Dr. Vera Holloway, who gained national attention in 1944 by exposing a widespread vaccine fraud scheme that endangered thousands of children, Died January 15th at Autumn Hills Nursing Home. She was 86. Doctor. Holloway's investigation led to the arrest of 17 school nurses across Pennsylvania and prompted sweeping reforms in vaccine accountability that became national standards. She served as Chief Pediatric Inspector for Allegheny County from 1946 to 1985, training generations of health inspectors and developing protocols still used today. Dr. Holloway never married and had no children. She is survived by no immediate family. Memorial donations may be made to the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh Vaccine Education Fund. Services Friday, January 19th at Homewood Cemetery. 300 people attended the funeral. Cold January day, snow threatening but holding off. Patricia Sullivan was there, 78 years old now, retired from Children's Hospital after 52 years of nursing. She spoke at the graveside. My brother Martin died when I was 12. I was terrified of everything after that. But Dr. Holloway came to our house, sat with us, explained the truth, convinced us to trust again. Because of her, I lived. Because of her, I became a nurse. Because of her, I spent my career protecting children. She saved not just me, she saved thousands. And she taught us that honesty matters more than comfort, that truth matters more than convenience. Helen Kowalski spoke next. 41 years old, pediatrician at Children's Hospital. My Aunt Dorothy died in 1941. I never met her, but her death changed everything. Doctor. Holloway's investigation gave us answers, gave us justice, gave us purpose. I became a doctor because of that, to continue the work she started. She placed a photograph on the casket. 4 children: Dorothy, Martin, Philip, Edmund. School photos from 1940 and 1941. These are the children you carried for 63 years. We will remember them. We will remember you. We will continue your work. The minister prayed. The casket was lowered. The mourners dispersed slowly. Snow began to fall as the last person left. The story did not end. 2010, Philadelphia, measles outbreak. 43 children infected. 2 died. Investigation revealed a clinic worker substituting vaccines with saline, selling real vaccines online. Arrested. Tried. Convicted. 20 years in prison. The prosecution cited the Vera Holloway precedent. 2014, Pennsylvania legislature passed the Vera Holloway Memorial Vaccine Safety Act. Electronic tracking of all vaccines, real-time inventory systems, blockchain verification, technology that did not exist when Vera was working, technology that made fraud nearly impossible. Passed unanimously, signed into law. Other states followed. By 2018, all 50 states had electronic vaccine tracking. By 2020, vaccine fraud had dropped 97% from 1944 levels. The system worked. 2024. 80 years after Vera Holloway walked into that school clinic and discovered the fraud that would define her life. COVID pandemic. Vaccines developed. Vaccines distributed. And resistance, protests, conspiracy theories, fear. Patricia Sullivan was 97 now. Watched the news from her nursing home room. Saw the protests against vaccines. Saw the fear. Saw history repeating. She wrote one final letter to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, published October 12, 2024. 80 years to the day after Vera first saw the statistics. To the editor, I am 97 years old. In 1941, my brother Martin died of diphtheria because a school nurse was selling vaccines and giving children water instead. Dr. Vera Holloway investigated. She risked everything to expose the truth. She changed the system. I am alive because of her. Now I see people refusing vaccines, claiming they cannot trust the system. I understand that fear. I felt it too. But the answer is not refusal. The answer is accountability. The answer is demanding truth. My brother has been dead 83 years, but I remember. I remember what happens when children are not protected. Please learn from our history. Vaccinate your children. Patricia Sullivan, Pittsburgh. The letter went viral, shared millions of times, reprinted everywhere. Some people changed their minds. Some vaccinated their children. Some of those children lived who might have died. That is how truth wins. Not with one victory, but with persistence. One person at a time. One generation at a time. Dorothy Kowalski, Martin Sullivan, Philip Brennan, Edmund Harper. 4 children who died in 1941. Their names are on a memorial plaque at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. Installed 1986, dedicated by Vera Holloway. Beneath their names, these children did not die in vain. Their deaths revealed a system failure. Their deaths led to reforms that saved thousands. We cannot bring them back, but we honor them by protecting all children. We demand honesty. We refuse to look away. That is our duty. Dr. Vera Holloway. Every October 12th, memorial service at the hospital. Medical students, nurses, public health workers gather, read the names, tell the story, recommit to the work. Then back to their jobs. Protecting children. That is what Vera taught. Vigilance, honesty, courage. Standing up when hard. Speaking out when dangerous. Fighting for truth when it costs everything. That is the legacy. That is why the story matters. The sun rises over Pittsburgh. Another day begins. In schools everywhere, nurses prepare vaccines. They scan barcodes, verify records, follow protocols Vera helped create. Most do not know her name. But the system exists because of her. Because one doctor refused to look away. Because she believed children deserved better. Because she had courage to act. That is the power of one person. That is the power of truth. That is why we tell the story, again and again, forever.